No, we're not talking about Nico. We got a season to wrap up. Here we go. As the Vols are 8-4, disappointment or not, we'll discuss Spencer Riley as well. This is Off the Hook Sports. All right, here we go. We're off and running. So you're telling me you're having trouble hearing the rejoin there, Caleb Calhoun. How about our fans that are on the message board? Were you able to hear the rejoin? A little bit of technical issues going. How are you, Caleb? Did you hear the rejoin?
I did not hear the rejoin, but maybe it's just me. Fans, jump in how it's going on your end. But happy. There we go. Got the Rob Spence signal.
Okay, we're working on that. All right, Caleb Calhoun, let's go ahead and get to it as we've got a big show lined up on tap today, including Spencer Riley, who joins us each and every Monday. We absolutely love that. We'll continue that going through December. A week from now, we'll know where the Tennessee Vols are going bowling. I'm sensing Gator Bowl and maybe North Carolina based off some people that I've talked to. Today's tough question, is this season a success? Also, is there anything Josh Heupel could have really done at the quarterback position to be better than 8-4? We'll give out our Torchbearers report cards against Vanderbilt as well. But as we look forward, I want to ask you about concerns, and I want to ask Spencer Riley about concerns about Josh Heupel that he might not have had following the 2022 season that he does in 2023. Also, Vols returning. I've got your top trio of who you want back, and there's about 1,800, I believe, players that could enter the transfer portal for at least somewhat of a good reason or could stay for somewhat of a good reason. So there's a lot of guys with decisions to be made, and I think one of the things that we know is somebody will make a crazy off-the-wall decision that we just totally don't understand. So that's probably going to happen. Also, we'll discuss some NIL spending on current players versus prospects, SEC power rankings, and we'll look back at the college football season as only an SEC championship remains on the SEC slate. We all know that that's going to be Alabama and Georgia, so no great surprise how they got there, especially Alabama was a little bit surprising. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but Auburn always plays well at home in the Iron Bowl. Always. So I wasn't surprised to do that. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir? And welcome to all of those that are on the message board right now. So you hear me, but you don't hear the production board. We're going to get that figured out. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I'm good. You asked me how I was a little while ago.
Check, make sure. I forget sometimes, so I probably got a couple.
I know. I'm just trolling you. I'm doing really well. Although I'm not as happy. My Titans won yesterday. I want us to keep losing. I want the high draft pick. I don't want to win.
That's fair.
You know.
That's fair. Okay, can you? You can still hear me now, as we're dealing with a little bit of a technical issue. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, I can hear you now.
And you can hear Tennessee's next quarterback say,
yes, there you go. It's there.
Hey, after a Thanksgiving weekend where I was at my mom's and we had to go mobile, we made it happen. So Rob Spence, thank you for your help. Rob Spence is on the message board, and I think he is officially now our sound engineer. We needed one, so there we go. It is time for today's tough question, and I'm going to post that on the YouTube channel. So a lot of tryptophan over the weekend. Here we go. It is time for today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, let's get right to it. It's brought to you by our friend Andy Mason at andymasonrealestate.com. Use one word to describe the state of the program after Tennessee's 8-4 season. That admittedly could have been better, but it is what it is. excuse me. What it is, what it is. 8-4. Tennessee with an 8-4 regular season. Pick a word to describe this season. So I'll place that on you, and the first 4 words that we come up with, we'll put on our YouTube for the poll of the day. Today's tough question. I'm going to go on you first, Caleb. I'm putting the pressure on you. 8-4. I picked 9-3. Perhaps you want to remind everybody what you picked. But at 8-4, what did you pick to begin the season? And what did you think of an 8-4 season? Pick a word to describe it. Tennessee's 2024 season is blank.
You mean 2023 season? But
2023 season is
for context.
blank.
I went, and I'm going to say ahead of time, I based this off stuff we were hearing in camp and reports you were hearing. Had I known what was actually happening, I would not have made this pick. But I went on 11-1, thinking Tennessee would play above its freight because I was hearing reports that Joe Milton was as good as Hendon Hooker, and I was hearing, and I didn't know that Cooper Mays would be hurt. Those 2 things changed everything. So this is what I probably would have picked had we can't see practice, so we can't know that. Now, as far as this season, even though it was less than what I think I expected and less what most people even hoped, I'm going to say the state of the program as a whole, rock solid. That is my word. And the reason I say rock solid is because we're talking about an 8-4 season right now, and we are all acknowledging it's a major disappointment. Guys, remember when Butch Jones went 8-4 and sold it like he won a national championship? And that was the state of Tennessee. Did anybody hear Josh Heupel do that over the weekend? Did anybody hear the players do that at all? No, Ramel Keaton acknowledged it was a disappointing season. Multiple players acknowledged. Even Joe Milton acknowledged it was a difficult year at the very least. And Josh Heupel admitted it was a disappointing season. I'm sorry. That's the reverse of the last couple of times we saw Tennessee go 8-4, where Josh Heupel Butch Jones was claiming they won a national title. Towards the end of his tenure, as he was kind of clinging to his job, Philip Fulmer was starting to sell 8-4 as good. And so for once, we're seeing a coach who sits there and says, you know what? 8-4 is not good. It's not where we want to be. And he says, but he makes the case that that's not reflective of where the program will be long-term. I think that's what you want. And I think because of that, I'm going to say rock solid.
Okay, so I'll go rock solid for you. We get the first calls on this. No offense to the message board, but we put this thing together. So you go rock solid. I'm going to go disappointing. And I say that's a very
wait.
Fine
is that
line.
Is that your phrase for the 2023 season or state of the program? Those are 2 different questions.
Use one word to describe the Vols. I don't know. Do you want to go program or do you want to go? I'm open to this.
Well, you asked me state of the program first. Yeah. Okay. You want to go season?
Let's go season first. We'll do program tomorrow. Okay. We'll use one word to describe the Vols 2024 season. Okay. And we'll do program tomorrow. I'm going to go with disappointing. And I'm going to post this on our YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. By the way, today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason. Best prices, best service in real estate in East Tennessee. Over 40 years of experience in that office. It's pretty phenomenal when it comes to real estate in East Tennessee. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsor. It's easy for me to say. All right, so the 2024 season, I took disappointing. So you
mean 2023? 2023 season.
2023. It's been a long tryptophan injected weekend with me with turkey. All right, today's tough question. Use one word to describe the Vols 2023 season. I will go with disappointing.
I'll go underwhelming, but kind of similar thing. I would have said disappointing too, but not disappointing, but not indicative of a long-term problem. And that's why I said state of the program is on rock solid ground right now, because I don't think this is a problem. I don't think 8-4 is indicative of a long-term problem for Tennessee because of the injuries in the state.
So you look at the message board, drive this train. What are 2 other words that are maybe on the other end of the spectrum, or 2 words on our message board that you would choose to fill out our today's tough question, which you can vote on our YouTube channel in about 30 seconds.
And by the way, rock solid is one word. It's hyphen. So for those who are questioning me, rock hyphen solid. I made it one word.
Yes. Technically 2 words, but
no, hyphen makes it one word.
Okay, go ahead. All right. So what do we got? What other words that are out there? We've got a couple of different ones. Rock solid is what Elias said. Realistic. What do you think about realistic? And then, okay. We got excruciating. So we're going to put excruciating on there. Okay. Excruciating, which I understand, even that can be a good season, but sometimes, like Alabama is going to play for an SEC title, but finding that quarterback was excruciating, right? Finding Jalen Milroe in the first month of the season.
Yeah, I mean, excruciating can end strong. I mean, it can always end well, but I mean, heck, 1998, if you think about it, was excruciating because it seemed like Tennessee was, as Keith Jackson said before that game in the national title, he said it seemed like the devil was after them rather than destiny riding with them, was a direct Keith Jackson quote. And
wow, that's a good quote.
It is. And if you go back and look, they survived Syracuse, they survived Florida. Jamal Lewis goes down with a season-ending injury, and that's all through their first 4 games of the year. And they have 3 road games and 3 games against future top 15 teams that year to start the season. So yeah, no, I think excruciating is a perfectly good one.
Okay, so I've got underwhelming, disappointing, excruciating. I think we're kind of on the negative tip right now. I want
realistic was the other one.
Realistic?
Yeah, I think that's a good 4.
Okay, so we're kind of down the middle on 1, and
I don't think anybody's going to be high on this season. That's why I said, I'm like, what does this say for the program long term? Like, Dave, do you think this is a concern? Tennessee going 8-4?
I got a couple of concerns about how they got to 8-4. I don't have a problem with 8-4 as just the record. Is that fair to say? Smoky Mountain Red says, do you think Josh knew what he had into the year and held back on the majority of the freshmen? Or is he old school with freshmen mainly do not play unless they're it? I think mainly don't play because Tennessee is still a program that has to rely on player development. So I would say that to this point. But do I think he's holding back for the 2024 season? No, I don't think that's a very bright way to coach, and I don't think he's doing that.
No, he wouldn't hold back. I think if anything though, it's Heupel's. We've talked about this, is a little cocky, and there are players that Heupel doesn't mind starting young players. What he does mind is starting young players over veterans that he specifically went out and got. Cough, Joe Milton, because that would be an admission of I got this wrong, and he doesn't want to admit he got something wrong. That it's kind of the arrogance that you see sometimes with NFL GMs. I don't think Heupel likes admitting that he got an evaluation wrong.
Okay, so given what we've said, what would you say is the state of Tennessee's program right now? We have the poll up there right now. Your choices are you can go underwhelming, disappointing, excruciating, realistic. Underwhelming really isn't that negative. Sometimes that can just happen. I mean, LSU's season was probably disappointing, whereas Tennessee's was kind of underwhelming considering the losses that they would have to fit. Excruciating may well be Alabama, even though they've had success. Realistic is a choice getting about 44% of the vote, disappointing for 44% of the vote, excruciating about 10, and it's flopping all over the place. So go on the YouTube channel. So the state of the program, how would you describe it? Those are 2 very different questions.
Yeah, state of the program, like I said, that's where I said rock solid. I said underwhelming for regular season, rock solid for state of the program. I think the program is in perfectly good shape, and I think this year notwithstanding, it's going to be fine long term.
Yeah, and did you see what Jalen Hyatt did last night for the New York Giants? He lit it up. He played exceptionally well. I think with Hendon Hooker, they didn't miss Darnell Wright as much as they thought. They could have used him for depth, certainly when injuries crept in. But those 2 guys, they're worth a victory or 2 or 3, aren't they? If they're on this team, we're talking about a 10-2 team or an 11-1 team, right?
Absolutely. But so you lose your Biletnikoff Award winner at receiver, who's now already balling in the NFL. You lose your quarterback. You're right. Darnell Wright, maybe not much, but you do lose an all-world right tackle, like somebody that you just can't replace overnight. And then you start this year, you deal with season-ending injuries to your best receiver, your best cornerback, your anchor at center missing the first 5-6 games of the year. So they're just, and yes, a downgrade at quarterback. We can't deny that. But taking out, and oh, by the way, a season-ending injury to the guy, to your other middle linebacker that you really needed. All of those things combined, I don't look, given where Tennessee is as a program, I don't think 8-4 was that. I don't think that's fully a result of poor coaching or anything like that. I think it's Tennessee's not where it wants to be depth-wise.
No, and I think last year raised expectations, and I thought that Joe Milton had his. I thought there was a glass ceiling in August, and in retrospect, if you look at what Joe Milton did, and he played his best game against Vanderbilt at home, and I'm well aware that that's Vanderbilt, but still he continued to improve throughout the year for the most part. I mean, there were some ups and downs, but if you want to say state of the program, I will go rock solid with you. I can't really think of anything better than that. We'll get to some concerns a little bit later in the program, as well as I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friends right there at the Hemp House in Chattanooga. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code hooked and get 10% off. Promo code hooked and get 10% off. We want you to certainly check that out, and we appreciate the Hemp House and all that they do for us. All right, so now it is time to get to something more important. What are we doing now there, Caleb? We got some awards
just recap,
to give out.
Looking key players and report card for the Vanderbilt game. Let's go ahead and do it.
All right, let's go. Report card for the Vanderbilt game. Divvy out your reports and what you think about the Vols as they beat Vanderbilt over the weekend. And it wasn't close. I had a feeling in the first half it might be, but that was quickly dispelled by the Vols and their ability to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. So let's hand out the report card, and it's brought to you by friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Supply. They've got the fire opals that are awesome. That is Rick Terry. Again, Rick Terry, you need to check him out for the game day jewelry. So report card, who stood out in your mind?
All right, so report card, quarterbacks. Can you do anything other than A+? Whatever you think of Joe Milton, that was a flawless performance on Saturday. And by the way, I grade units. So I'm including what Nico did coming in late in the game. Nico was also flawless when he played on Saturday. The only player who wasn't flawless was Gaston Moore but Gaston Moore did throw a touchdown pass that was dropped. You saw that, right, Dave?
Yes,
had a touchdown pass in the game. So I thought quarterback play was perfect. Literally perfect. So I got A+. So
is this the first A+ that you've given out this year?
Not overall, but it is for quarterbacks. Yes, definitely for quarterbacks.
Okay.
All right, so running back, I got A. The only reason I don't have A+ is none of them scored a touchdown, but I got no issue with how they played. They averaged over 5 yards a carry and almost 6 yards a carry. So I'll go A for running back. Jalen Wright leading the way again. Wide receiver, I'm going A-. Even though Ramel Keaton and Squirrel White balled out, Nimrod and Caleb Webb, Squirrel White had 2 drops, was lucky to not have a fumble. And I believe, was it Caleb Webb who dropped that touchdown pass from Gaston Moore in the end zone?
Yeah, but I mean, you got to use this weighted somewhat. I mean, you're talking about the third string in there. I mean, you should you should catch it. You shouldn't drop it. Don't get me wrong, but
I grade the unit as a whole, even with the third string. So the drop, so there's 2 drops by Squirrel and a drop by Caleb Webb in that one. So I gotta go A- on that one, Dave.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Tight end should be A+. Jacob Warren, 82 yards and a touchdown. McCollin Castles, 47 yards and a touchdown. Hunter Salmon came in and had 2 catches for 21 yards. However, love Jacob. This was one of his best games. He was epic. He did drop a touchdown pass, though, over the middle.
Yep.
And I just couldn't avoid that, which brings it down to A.
Yep, very true. Jacob will join us later today, as a matter of fact, to talk about Senior Day festivities, and that'll be brought to you by Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. Local doctors that care about you. ccteyes.com. Support our sponsors there right down below. Also got a special announcement I want to get to before we get too much further, of a new sponsor that we're super excited about. So, what about the defensive side? Or did I leave out the offensive line?
You left out the offensive line. I'm giving them a C-. Now, they were playing with one hand tied behind their back, but look, it's very clear Jackson Lampley can't play. Addison Nichols was in the game and was not good. honestly. Dane Davis was having to move around. Gerald Mincy. I mean, they gave up 2 sacks, and you can't give up 2 sacks to Vanderbilt. I'm sorry. So I had to go C- with offensive line in this one.
Yeah. And Cooper was out of the game early. We'll have his fall report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning later today. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company. That'll tell you need a brand new unit for like 5 digits. It could cost thousands or more. Don't do it. City Heating, cityheatandair.com. City Heating and Air, cityheatandair.com. Again, support our sponsors. Defensive side, I don't know where he graded, but my, James Pierce is the type of player that if Tennessee ever gets to a championship level like they did in the 90s, he's the type of player or 2 or 3 that if you are sleepwalking, and we don't even know when the Vanderbilt game is going to be anymore, or if Tennessee's going to play Vanderbilt. We think they are. Well, we do know they'll play them next year. We don't know how much further down the line. But he's the type of player, if you're sleepwalking through a November game, James Pierce is still showing up and very well could end up winning the game for you with a strip sack. He was so active. It seemed like he was in the television screen when the offense was on the field at times.
Yeah, you're stealing my torchbearers. I got him. I'm going to name him specifically.
We're getting there.
But before we get to James Pierce as a whole, we got to start with the defensive tackles. And I say B-, mainly because of just Amari Thomas. I actually thought the defensive tackles didn't play great in the game. They didn't get the push they needed a lot of times. But Amari Thomas held him up, which I stole another torchbearer. But yes, defensive ends as a whole, it's an A. James Pierce was dominant. Tyler Barron had a sack. And Joshua Josephs had a sack and a couple of hurries. So defensive ends was an A, defensive tackles B-. Could have been honestly a C for defensive tackles. Linebackers. If they had started Jeremiah Tellender the whole game, this would be an A because Aaron Beasley was solid. Jeremiah Tellender is the answer for your middle linebacker over Elijah Herring if you have injuries. Right, Dave? He was so much better.
Yeah, Elijah Herring needs to be playing defensive end. I talked to Fred White on that Sunday show with Fred over the weekend. You can check that out. Fred said the guy needs to be playing with his hand down. He needs to be a defensive end. So he agreed with me on that. Darla says, my gosh, it was a terrible Vanderbilt team. It was. So let's wrap up the grades on the defensive side of the ball, and then let's get to your torchbearers.
All right, so linebackers, it's a B, largely because Elijah Herring and Caleb Perry played a lot more great. Defensive backs, C+. I thought outside of a couple of players, they were horrible in the game. Gabe Giuliani, Warren Burrow weren't great. And again, Andre Turrentine can't play. I'm just going to put that out there. Kicking game, C-. Jackson Ross averaging only 39.7 yards per punt, only 1 in the 20. And Charles Campbell missing a 41-yarder. It's a C-. Return game, B. D. Williams played well. So moving on to torchbearers real quick. Number 5, I'm going to get, even though I didn't think the offensive line was great, Dave, I gave Ollie Lane a torchbearer. That was a tough job, even though it was Vanderbilt. Stepping in at center with Cooper Mays out and helping to pave the way for a unit that averaged over 5 yards a carry on the ground. Ollie Lane deserves a shout out. Amari Thomas, another one who deserves a shout out that was part of a unit that wasn't good, but Amari Thomas himself had 4 tackles and he had 2 quarterback hurries, which you always want out of a defensive tackle. Number 3, nothing else to be said. James Pierce Jr. I mean, two hurries, 1.5 tackles for loss. Homeboy was dominant in the game. I think 2 and 1 are pretty obvious, Dave. Number 2 is Ramel Keaton, who had over 100. He had 4 catches for I think 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was a great final home game for him. And Joe Milton's player of the game. Joe Milton had arguably the best statistical game for a Tennessee football quarterback since 2009. I argue Josh Dobbs and Hendon Hooker had a couple of better ones, but hey, you know what? That performance was in that category.
Agreed. All right, so we're going to visit with Spencer Riley coming up. We're going to talk some balls with the VFL Championship Center from 1998 and his thoughts on 3 balls that Tennessee just has to have back. So you hang tight with me. We've got a lot to get to. The officials get an F-, but good Lord, what else is new? It seems like the officiating somehow gets worse throughout the season. You're going to have to start paying these guys because the NFL's poaching these cats. Did a little bit of digging on that. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. The NFL, if you remember about 5-6 years ago, Caleb went through an officiating issue where a bunch of their guys were questioned. And what did they do? They started hiring better guys. They started paying better money. Some of those guys came out of the SEC. Some of those guys came out of the Big Ten. Some of those guys came out of the Pac-12. That's why you're seeing the officiating be poor across the board. But let me go ahead and tell you, the best officials were undoubtedly in the SEC. I don't think that anybody would question that whatsoever. So, all right, I want to welcome a brand new sponsor to the program, and it's just super cool that we're able to bring him on. You saw him last week, but as the new title sponsor of the program, I wanted to be sure and introduce him properly as the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and sell for less. Banks & Jones is ready to go for trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. I'm going to offer this really quick. I know lawyers that say, I'd rather just settle. I don't want to go to trial. There are a lot of lawyers who won't take on medical malpractice. Well, that's not the case at Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones is Tennessee's trial attorney. Spencer Riley up next as the program, again, represented by Banks & Jones and our friend T. Scott Jones. Play to win. 2 minutes, and we're back with Spencer Riley. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
There we go. As Spencer Riley will join us shortly, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle. Don't settle. Banks & Jones ready to go to trial. Play to win. Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. Spencer Riley to join us. Now, let's go.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, hit that like and subscribe as Caleb say something clever. So, or something interesting, something compelling, while I check with Spencer Riley and make sure he got the link that I sent him.
Well,
Something good. Come on, bring it.
we'll be talking about college football in the larger context a little bit later, but I want to tease that I think Texas A&M just made the biggest home run hire in college football in years. And I think they made a hire that puts them on track to have a dynasty. I will get to that. There were some crazy coaching searches over the weekend. That one was another one. It was very reminiscent of the Tennessee Schiano case, but unlike Tennessee, Texas A&M didn't have a former head coach finagle his way in to take over as athletic director and launch a coup and then hire a really, 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 really bad head coach that he wanted to be his guy, which saved Texas A&M. We'll talk broadly. We'll talk more about this specifically, Dave, but you know what I'm learning with college football, and you know this. there's no like genius magic formula to good head coaching hires. Most of the time, you stumble into the good head coaching hire. I mean, Alabama stumbled on Nick Saban.
I don't know about stumbled. I mean, they targeted
wanted
him.
Rich Rodriguez for a while.
Well, they did want Rich Rodriguez because I think they thought that he was easier to get. But when they decided, when Mal Moore decided, I'm going to get fired if I don't get Nick Saban, he camped out outside of his house and made sure that he got him. So, I mean, I don't think you stumbled into that one except for the Rodriguez angle, and that's very fair to offer that up. But I will say this about most coaching searches. You're right. I mean, Josh Heupel was not the number one choice. I don't believe that for a second. If your first swing is a guy that's had some success at UCF, that's not a good swing unless you know something about him that we don't. And these athletic directors are paid to know that. As far as locks in the SEC, I've told you before, I had 3 locks in my lifetime that I said that is going to work. And one was Urban Meyer to Florida. Cha-ching, Dave was right. Okay. I had 2, Nick Saban to Alabama. Cha-ching, Dave was right. I did not.
Was right.
Well, yeah, and I didn't think that he was going to win, 7 titles. But, I mean, I thought he would win at least 1, maybe 2 when he was hired. The third was Dan Mullen to Florida, and next thing I know, he's getting affectionate with a shark. So, obviously,
that was Jim McElwain who got affectionate with the shark.
I know, but it's fun to run them all together.
Well, looking back, I'm actually impressed that you saw Urban Meyer because that was him. I knew Urban Meyer would work out at Ohio State, but him coming out of Utah, you thought that spread offense was going to work in the SEC? I thought there were a lot of questions about it at the time.
Oh, I totally did. I thought that he was ahead of the curve from a schematic standpoint, even more so than Josh Heupel is right now, because other people are kind of doing what Josh was doing. At the time, I didn't think that anybody was doing what Urban Meyer was doing. So I was very impressed by what he was able to do. And again, you have to remember the schools I'm talking about. Alabama has incredible tradition. They're going to recruit at a high level, right? Florida has in-state talent. They're going to recruit at a high level. So part of my prediction of those 3 guys had to do with the school that they were going to. I don't know that. Okay, would you say Steve Spurrier when he went to South Carolina was an absolute lock? Well, he was a lock to win 8 or 9 games, but he wasn't a lock to win a championship there.
Yeah, he was a lock to do maybe a little bit more than what Lou Holtz did, which is exactly what he did. Now, I thought Jim Harbaugh to Michigan was a lock. I'm not going to lie. I thought they got a Nick Saban who was going to win multiple national titles.
No, that's a good one. The only problem with Harbaugh, he's known to be really difficult to work with.
Yeah, he's the Rick Barnes of college football. I think he grinds you so hard that you're mentally drained by the end of the season, honestly. I'll say another one. What about this, Dave? Historical home run hires. It didn't pan out the way they wanted it to, but just think about 1976. Johnny Majors had to seem like the biggest home run hire in college football history at the time, right? I mean,
nowadays with media everywhere and 15 channels covering it, Johnny Majors moving. Think about how big of a story that was. Winning a Heisman, winning a championship at one school, and then going back to your old school. It would essentially be Dabo Swinney going back to Alabama. That would be synonymous. And I'm not
if
even
Alabama was struggling.
Yeah, if Alabama was really struggling. And I'm not going to say Kirby Smart, who went back to his school, Caleb, because Kirby Smart didn't have the pedigree.
He didn't win a championship at another school. Yeah.
Yeah, like Dabo and Majors had. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's,
and not
that's
to mention Johnny Majors was Tennessee's favorite son. You hire your favorite the school's favorite player of all time, Peyton Manning before Peyton Manning. Is that safe to say? Johnny Majors was that level of a legend in the 1970s for Tennessee. And
I think there are 3 monster legends at Tennessee, and they are quarterbacks. I think it was Johnny Majors, and then I think after that it was Condredge Holloway. And I'm just going to tell you that UT Sports Information Department fielded more autographs about Condredge Holloway than anyone in the history of the program until Peyton Manning. So I think he has to be considered up there as beloved by fans and elite. There's a weird combination, like Dewey Warren, for instance. I think he's beloved by Tennessee's fans. But was he an elite quarterback? Probably not. But he was very good. Casey Clausen, who is my favorite quarterback of the tenure I covered, No offense to any of the other guys, but just his ice water through his veins, went on the road. I loved his confidence. Some of you guys didn't. That's fine. But was he elite? Probably not. But he was really, really good. How would Hendon Hooker have stacked up against the quarterbacks that are vying for a Heisman now? The reason I'm asking you about the Heisman, I know it's a little off topic, is that I just got my Heisman email that said that voting is open and I can open. So if I want to be a complete imbecile, I can vote this afternoon before the championship game. And then, Caleb, you're allowed to call me Dave, the complete imbecile. Okay? Because I would not do that. I wait till Sunday morning, because what if Jalen... Okay, I'm trying to think of an example. I guess there's nothing that Jaden Daniels could do. Who else is in the argument right now for the Heisman? Who's second? Who plays this weekend?
Bo Nix.
Okay. What if Bo Nix throws for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns? I mean, you've at least got... I mean, you can't just discount that by sending in your vote for 5 days early, can you?
No, but see, that's what cost Peyton Manning in 1997. And that during that time period, many voters, Dave, and I know people say this is, you have to understand, I think the voters during this time had a point. They thought it was unfair to give Peyton Manning credit for that SEC championship game, because their argument was, well, the other conferences don't have big conference championship games, so why should Peyton Manning be able to have an extra game to up his resume when Charles Woodson didn't have an extra game to up his resume? Because if you remember, the Big Ten didn't have a title game that year. And a lot of voters, I think, just thought, no, I'm turning in my vote after the regular season. Because
it was bad then. A lot of voters would turn them in like late October, early November.
My rule was, I think they turned them in the week before Thanksgiving. You notice the players won the Heisman a lot of times the week before Thanksgiving. That's how it went down, because they didn't want to have to worry about it over Thanksgiving.
Maybe fair. I like that. Okay, so let's bring in Spencer Riley now. Nice enough to join us. We always love visiting with Spencer Riley, the former Tennessee offensive lineman. I'm going to stop saying former Vol. I'm just going to start saying VFL. I hate it because I hated that saying because Derek Dooley, I thought, invented it, but we found out that Fred White, you can check out that Friday show with Fred, is on our YouTube channel, actually invented it. And Derek Dooley stole it. So I'm okay using VFL. VFL center Spencer Riley joins us now. That is a sweet pullover.
Appreciate it, man. Just trying to stay a little warm today since it's a little chilly outside today.
Yeah, Spencer and I were texting back and forth. And it's one thing to see a game get chippy late in the fourth quarter if it's one-sided. It's another thing to see it get chippy in the second quarter. I mean, there's a part of me that wondered, is there going to be a brawl? Is this game going to end midway through the third quarter? Are they just going to call it since not that much is on the line? That was some bad officiating, letting that get out of control.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely let it get out of control early. You know what I mean? So then they tried to rein it in the second half, and so they could not get a flow in the second half of the ball game. It's like every drive. I think both teams at one point in time had 3 consecutive penalties on 3 consecutive plays in the start of the second half, which was all, I mean, come on now. If you're going to do that, you should have done it from the start of the ball game. If you're going to let them play chippy, let them play chippy. It's your choice as an official how you want to manage that game, and that's what you're supposed to do, is manage it, not be seen. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and they were definitely seen for the lack of officiating.
No doubt about it. And Spencer, how do we follow you on the Twitter? Because you're passing around good info from time to time.
Well, sometimes I don't usually tweet. You know what I mean? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's just really more for me to just get around and search and see what's going on in the world, making sure I can stay up to date. But it is, I don't even know what my Twitter is, to be honest with you. You asked me, I couldn't tell you. You probably know it, but you tagged me in it a couple of times, so I don't really know.
I have, but there's some other Spencer Riley in LA, and he's like 22, and I accidentally tagged him. So, Caleb, figure that out.
That's not me. I think it's S Riley 2727, I think, but I'm not for sure on that. So.
Oh, I thought you said X Riley on for a minute. I'm like, darn, Spencer. Dang,
no, it's called S, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not Elon
As
Musk.
in super.
Riley.
All right, so we're tweeting that now. We're ready to go. About to talk right now. We're going to talk Vols not only for the season but over the weekend. As we reported first, I'm happy to say it was good timing. The blind acorn or blind squirrel finds a nut or something like that. I'm still kind of a dopey on tryptophan, Spencer. So you'll have to pardon me for a second. So when I look at Tennessee, one of the things that I wanted to dive in with you specifically, and that we talked about it being chipping early, but this Tennessee team finished the drill, and how should this senior class be remembered? Because there were classes in particular, the guys that were gone in 97. So some of the classes would have been 93 and 94, depending if they redshirted. Right. They helped set you guys up for a national title. It's kind of what we're all hoping. Tennessee fans are hoping this class will be, right?
Yeah, you would hope so. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I think the senior class set the foundation of what they did do. Was the guys who stayed, they had a commitment to the University of Tennessee. You know what I mean? And then they brought in some transfers and things of that nature. But the guys who stuck it out through the bad, you know what I mean? And really endured and suffered through those times. There it was atrocious under Pruitt. So I mean, it was just at the end of the day, I think they're going to be guys who were great teammates, who wanted to be here for the University of Tennessee and wanted to build a culture and a foundation for the program moving forward to get back into the championship contention year in and year out.
Yep, I agree completely. Caleb?
Spencer, on just a personal level, I guess, watching somebody like Joe Milton play so well his final game, what does something like that mean to a player like you? Joe Milton had his ups and downs at Tennessee. He really struggled at times, It was his last home game, and he just put on probably the best show since a Tennessee quarterback since Jonathan Crompton in 09 versus Memphis was the name. What does that mean for you to see a player on his last game be able to do something like that?
It's always nice to see somebody go out that way at home. Especially after all the criticism that he received throughout the year about, hey, he shouldn't be the guy. And, you know what I mean? You never heard him say a bad word about anybody, anything. He put his nose down. He did what he was supposed to, and he was a great teammate. And he ended up having a phenomenal day versus Vandy, and I'm proud of him, proud for him. Excited for him to end his home season that way.
No, I completely agree. Let's play a little 4 downs, if you don't mind. How does that work for you? Are you into that, Spencer? Are you ready to play a little 4 downs?
Never heard it, but we'll see. I'll make it work as I go. I can't. I'll just be honest with you, man. I don't get to watch the show all the time, so I hadn't heard the 4 downs, but I'm in.
We'll do it. All right. The program again brought to you by our new friends. It is T. Scott Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks and Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney. Let's get to 4 downs right now. And this is exciting because it's the first time Spencer's heard it. And it's even more exciting because my board got rebooted when the power went out overnight. So I'm trying to find it.
Wow, let's go.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, here we go. 4 downs. I got questions for my man here, Spencer Riley. And I want to frame this correctly. Are these concerns about Josh Heupel fair? So I'm going to ask you and Caleb these concerns, and then let's discuss if they're fair. Because I think that Josh Heupel came into this season as the golden child of coaching. He's figured out offense like no one else ever, and he's doing a great job. And the transfer portal is filled with stars, which wasn't exactly the case. So let's go to 4 downs now. And I want to ask you, Spencer, your thoughts on these different situations. And by the way, offensive linemen are always the most fun to interview. That's why Cooper Mays is on the channel. We'll have him later today. Cooper, what should people do when it comes to the channel?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. Spencer, you and I would have had a good time with NIL back in the day. You know that,
For
right?
sure. No doubt.
Oh, man. You would have blown it out of the water. If I could pay Spencer to come on the show every Monday back in the day, forget it. All right, here we go. First down, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right. So is this a fair concern that Josh Heupel is good with quarterbacks, not great with quarterbacks?
I think Josh Heupel's great at quarterbacks.
Okay.
I mean, he's done a really good job. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I think Hendon really performed probably better than he probably should have in his career here.
I would agree that.
And Hendon and Joe Milton both. I'll just be honest with you.
I would agree with that. I think he coached around some of Milton's deficiencies. And at the end of the day, I don't know that Tennessee would have been any better than 8-4 had they gone in a different direction. All right. What about you, Caleb, on first down? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Josh Heupel is incredible at coaching quarterbacks. I'm not so sure if he's great at getting them perfectly developed for the NFL, but he's great at making them look great in college. I mean, that's the Steve Spurrier comparison. I don't know any Steve Spurrier quarterback that made it to the NFL, but
hey, Caleb, that's not their job. You know, I mean, in the NFL, they got to train them up just as much as you do in college. You know what I mean? So those coaches got to do their part in the NFL.
Yeah, nobody comes up to Tom Osborne and says, man, if you could have made that Tommy Frazier a better NFL quarterback.
No doubt.
All right. What down is it, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Here's the one pushback I'll give on the quarterbacks real quick is I think he gets locked into guys. I don't think he wants to deviate from his original plan. Offensive line toughness. Is that a concern? They were a great running football team in the beginning. Had they had Cooper Mays, this probably isn't even on my radar. But there were some times without Cooper Mays in particular that I kind of wondered. And there are a couple of guys that are second stringers that aren't pushing for first team jobs. And I don't want to out them necessarily, but offensive line toughness, is that a concern about Josh Heupel that you might have, Spencer?
Well, I think it goes back down at the end of the day. The team takes on the mental makeup and the physical makeup, the mental makeup of the head coach. At the end of the day, I think Josh Heupel was a tough quarterback in college. Do not get me wrong. When I make this statement, I think as a group they're not very tough, but I think that has something to do with the type of kids that you recruit. At the end of the day. I don't worry about, you know what I mean? I don't think about 4 and 5 star guys. I think about tough, hard nosed kids. I mean, at the end of the day, that'll fight a buzzsaw for you and fight and bleed the University of Tennessee Orange.
Love that. All right. Caleb, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to say yet that Josh Heupel is the reason that they're soft. I think there are certain soft players on the team, but I think because Tennessee has not developed the depth that they need to develop yet because of all the attrition, the softer players stand out. Spencer, funny enough,
100% with that.
Yeah. And Spencer, you'll love this phrase. I told it to Jimmy last week, but literally it's like a pun. The phrase literally works. You know the phrase, don't have any choir boys on your team. You don't want any choir boys on the line. Tennessee has a nose tackle, Elijah Simmons, who could be a superstar. He's literally a singer. He actually sings in choirs. And I think that's why he's soft.
Well, I mean, it's I can't say that, but I will say this. If you're not trained to be physical and trained to be tough physically and mentally day in and day out, from the time you start playing this game, when you get in high school, I think you can develop toughness, right? Some people don't think you can. I do. I have seen it happen here where I'm at, and it's very demanding on the kid. And some kids make it through it and some kids don't. The ones who make it through it, man, usually end up being very successful at what they do, whatever they do in college, going on to college athletics or just going into the workforce or going on to college.
Very true. All right, let's go third down, Coop.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right. Do you have concerns over the way Josh Heupel just kind of hands off the defense, which he does to Tim Banks, and for the most part, that's worked out. But there were a couple of times where I thought there could have been, and I'm going to get to adjustments here in a second, but I thought there could have been adjustments made during the game, and I don't know that Josh Heupel necessarily concerns himself with the defensive side of the ball. Is that a concern? The fact that, like Spurrier, and Spurrier's pretty darn good, he's kind of a one-sided one side of the ball type of coach. That concern you at all?
I think every head coach is involved in both sides of the ball, some more than others, to an extent, right? I think he needs to be a little bit more forceful at times in what he wants. Coach Heupel, he's very well spoken, very well mannered. You don't see him get real fired up at times, and that's what a quarterback does, guys. Let's just be honest. As an offensive lineman, you like confrontation. Quarterbacks don't necessarily like confrontation. And all confrontation is good to an extent. You got to have the guys who push the buttons, and he's the man who pushes the buttons, and you got to make those adjustments as you go. And I deal with that on a Friday night basis as well.
I bet you do. Any concerns in that regard? I would say this: if Tim Banks is your guy, are you always worried about him getting hired away, Caleb? Because I don't think being a defensive coordinator with this offense would be a whole lot of fun, personally.
I think there may be a concern about that, but I think hiring Tim Banks to begin with kind of shows Josh Heupel's prowess and the type of coordinator he knows he needs for the offense he's running. And I give Josh Heupel a lot of credit for that. I'm with Spencer. I think he does have his hand in the defense to a certain degree, but I do think there are two types of coaches where, Spencer, I'm sure when you played, Philip Fulmer specialized in what you played, which was offensive line, but
every day in our meeting room, every day.
But I'm sure Fulmer could walk into the defensive back room and talk to defensive backs if he needed to about stuff. Whereas I think Heupel has a little more of the Spurrier thing going where he likes to focus on what he likes to focus on and have the other side just kind of locked down by somebody else. I think the key to that is just knowing who to hire to make sure that side is locked down. I've seen great offensive coaches make a defensive coordinator hire that's just not a fit for what they're trying to do a lot of times.
Fourth down, I think, is our best one. We saved the best for last, and we're going to talk about in-game management. 4 downs today brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer, one school at a time. We're in private schools now. We're going to get in public schools. I can promise you that. HeraldGRP.com. Also, your workplace can be safer. Let's avoid the tragedies that have been too much a part of our country's recent history. Fourth down, Coop.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right. Game management. And I'm throwing in there halftime adjustments, getting off the field on third downs. Do you, and in particular, I think the Alabama game stands out with halftime adjustments. Do you have issues with what Josh Heupel does during the game when the clock starts, Spencer?
How he manages the game, the in-game scenarios, I think he does a phenomenal job with that. All right. He manages adjustments and stuff. Everybody can be better at that. I think that's really two different questions there to me. Okay. So, yes, you can always be better at making in-game adjustments. It's something that you have to work on and do at practice. I'll try to practice those things for myself and my group as we go throughout the season, my staff, but at the end of the day, how he manages the clock, how he manages the game, how he tries to get points in the first drive of the ball game and the first drive of the second half, will set the tone for the ball game, period. And Tennessee's done an excellent job of scoring when they get the ball the first drive of the first half and the first drive of the second half.
Great point. Caleb, thoughts?
Yeah, that's been a big thing for me. That's a great point, Spencer. I've been very high on how they've managed the end of half at the beginning of next half games. You know, they would have scored. I think what killed all their momentum against Missouri was that Jalen Wright fumble as they were going into maybe take the lead at the end of the first half against Missouri and 2 weeks ago. So I do think he's fine with in-game adjustments to a certain degree. Look, I think a lot of adjustments didn't seem to be made this year because I think we're underestimating how limited Heupel thought he was from a personnel standpoint at certain times.
I think I think Tennessee's biggest problem is they don't have the personnel to do what they want to do depth-wise, day in and day out. They don't have enough offensive linemen. They don't have enough DBs. I'm sitting here to tell you that right now. I mean, the two hardest, in my opinion, the two hardest positions to play are DBs and offensive line.
Yep.
1,000% agree.
I'm looking forward to asking Spencer this question. So what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I'm going to throw some numbers at you, Spence. So we reported,
numbers lie to you to a degree.
That's true, but these are cash money numbers.
Okay.
So we broke that Cooper Mays on Friday was not going to participate in senior day. I think it's a sure sign he's coming back and wants to work some stuff out. And the bottom line is, I think and he has not told me this, but the bottom line is I think it comes down to what kind of package that the Spire Group or whoever the case may be, maybe somewhat me at Off the Hook Sports, can come up with cash. I mean, he is a paid 1099 employee of Off the Hook Sports. So it sounds weird to say that Cooper is the most important player coming back to this team next year. That's why I say what the H, but man, I think it is. And I don't even think it's close. If they get him back after what I saw against Florida, that could be worth 2 or 3 wins. And I'm not exaggerating, Spencer. Am I crazy?
If he's healthy. At the end of the day, you look at free agency, you know what I mean? Everybody goes through a physical, everybody goes through all this stuff before they sign the deal, right?
Yep.
So if he's healthy, I think he's definitely worth it. If he's injured, I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, you look at it from the business aspect, you know what I mean? Is he worth 2 or 3 wins when he's healthy? Sure. But if he's not healthy and he's not in the ballgame, what's he doing for you? You know what I mean? I'm not being, I mean, he may be, he's probably a great teammate and he's right. And he seems like to be, you know what I mean? He seems to be. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Yeah. Is he worth having on your ball club? Yeah, 100%. You got to try to make that deal. But at the end of the day, is he going to be healthy enough to play every game next year?
Great question. Caleb, thoughts?
So, Spencer, we're talking right now, you know, from the booster, if you're a Tennessee booster's perspective and you know you have this amount of money and you want to spend it to keep a certain amount of players, it's basically at this point like free agency in the NFL, which is you have to kind of play what you have against the cap. So would you, given how important he was this year when he was healthy, would you take the risk and invest in keeping Cooper Mays knowing his injury troubles this year? Like factoring that in?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, because here's the way I look at it. We know what he is. You go in the transfer portal, you don't really know what you're getting.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tennessee.
If you're trying to solidify that spot in the offensive line, which they need to get in the transfer portal and find some linemen, if they can find 4 transfer offensive linemen, they need to take 4 transfer offensive linemen.
No, I got no argument with that as well as Spencer Riley.
And they need to take 4 transfer DBs.
Yeah, I would be okay with that one. And be sure you get the right ones as well. I thought the top 3 players. Okay, so let me throw these numbers at you. Here are the numbers. The top paid center in the NFL makes $14.25 million. His name's Jason Kelsey. No, he is not the one that's sleeping with Taylor Swift, but I bet he wishes he was. And then you have Joe Burrow making $55 million a year. At the end of the day, is if you've got Nico making what, $8 million, is Cooper worth $1 million? Is he worth $500,000? The NFL rookie minimum is $750,000. I don't know that you have to get to that number, but you got to get somewhat close, don't you, Spencer?
Well, that's probably what he'll make if he goes into the draft. I mean, I don't know if he's a first round. I don't know if he's a first day guy. You know what I mean? First 3 round guy. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but I just don't. I think there's better players to get to that point than Cooper Mays in the draft. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's why I think he would fall to around 4 or 5 or 6 guy, 7. So I mean, that's kind of where I see it. So I mean, if you're getting close to that number, I figure that he needs to stay and take the money.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so Spencer, couple others that we wanted to talk about. Brew McCoy. Now we hear rumors and here, you know, you're paying him. You're not even questioning. Pay him.
Pay him.
Even you think he'll be fully 100% with that broken leg coming back?
Pay him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we dealt with that in the spring game when going in. Peerless Price broke his ankle in the spring game. I want to say going into the national championship year.
No, it was. It was definitely going into the 98. I mean, you guys had such a physical spring. It was ridiculous.
I mean, didn't seem to bother him. Depends on how his toughness is and all that good stuff. So, you know what I mean? But I definitely would pay him because he's definitely the best receiver you got on your team.
There's a couple of people saying I love Coop to death, but none of our offensive linemen were in shape. Now, I'm going to defend Coop, not just because he works with us, but when you miss as much time as he did, it's hard to get into football shape without playing football, Spencer. I think you would agree with that. But did you notice the offensive linemen weren't in shape this year? I didn't. That's the first time that's come up.
I couldn't say that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't. I'm not there either. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to tell. You know what I mean? On TV, there's so many. You get so many breaks during a TV game. There's enough time to catch your breath, enough time to regain your composure and to be ready to go for the next play.
So here's my take. What the H is Dave saying take? If you could get Cooper, and there's a long list of guys that could come back or could leave. Jalen Wright would be one of those who I think we agree is an elite tailback. But if you could get Cooper, Brew McCoy, and here's the curveball, Keenan Pili gets another year because he's missed almost 2 entire seasons with an ACL and tricep injury, respectively, in his last 2 years. If you could take those 3 guys compared to everybody else, you would take those 3 guys and go to the bank because I think they make you a way different football team than anybody else that it might be considering the transfer portal. Would you agree or disagree with that, Spence?
I know I'm taking the first 2. The other one that you're not seeing enough to know if you can do it or not.
It's very true.
No, but I've seen enough of the people who replaced him.
True.
Yeah.
But there you go. But you can go get somebody cheaper out of the portal that you know
right.
you know what I mean? That's just a business aspect of it from my point of view.
And I
nothing against the kid, you know what I mean? Nothing against the kid.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kev.
Spencer, I'm it's crazy to me, but I'm realizing now how much a middle linebacker just totally can 180 how good a defense plays. And I'm sure you guys saw that in 98, right? When Al Wilson moved over to middle linebacker, it had to completely change the defense, didn't it?
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. You know, he's the mouth of the team. You know, he's the guy who gets us all lined up and gets us the front lined up and the secondary lined up and let's go play football. You know, and it needs to be somebody that has a bad attitude that really, really hates the people playing across from them.
Amen to that. That's the dudes they need. Now, Darla asked a question: is there a cap in NIL money? There's not a cap, but
how much you can raise.
That's right. But here's the thing, Spencer, as I don't know if you contribute to the university at all, and perhaps I contribute to the communication department. But I will say this. If somebody came to me and they said, we want you to spend $100 because I don't have $100,000. But if they said $100 in helping us get this wide receiver from Oregon, or you can spend it on a guy, I'm not even going to take Coop. I'll take a guy. I know Ramel Keaton can't come back, but that type of guy, the plug away that's worked hard for 4 years and gotten better throughout his time. I'd rather give my money to that guy. But here's the real curveball. If I'm given that type of money, I can have a building named after me, Spencer.
Sure.
I mean, I can give
no
it
doubt.
because giving it to the university, people need to understand that people giving it to the university and giving it to NIL are two different things.
For sure. All right, dude. Well, I got to get off here. I got to go do something for a meeting. I apologize. I can cut it short today. I apologize.
No problem, buddy. You take care of that football.
Sorry, guys.
Gotcha.
I appreciate
Spencer, I really appreciate that. So what are your thoughts on that, Caleb? Would you rather give it to the university and have a school named after you, or quietly sit there and say, hey, I paid for that Bob Jones guy and Tennessee's winning the national championship thanks to me?
All right, I'm going to tell you, I'm a history major.
Would you rather, let me ask you this, would you rather pay for Nico quietly and nobody knows that you were the guy that paid for Nico, or would you rather have the communications building named after you at the University of Tennessee, the Calhoun Communications Building?
I'm going to tell you why I'd rather pay for Nico quietly. I study history. I am an expert in Gilded Age history, which was where this all started, this whole idea of like endowing libraries or whatever to name stuff after you so you could whitewash, or it was the version of sports washing of the day. Whitewash your horrible crimes against humanity. Andrew Carnegie is the worst. Carnegie Hall in New York. Andrew Carnegie, horrific excuse of a human being.
The Nobel Peace Prize was named after the guy who invented dynamite.
Alfred Nobel invented dynamite.
It's not Stryker or Stricker, but they had all kinds of things named after them, and they were the ones that created OxyContin.
Yes, the Sackler family. The Sackler family.
Sackler.
They didn't just create OxyContin and flood the market. They then patented the drug to help get you off being addicted to OxyContin. They should all be in prison. So what we're reaching an era in human history where we're realizing people who endow their names on stuff are just total horrible human beings and embarrassments to society. So I don't want my name on anything. I only want my name on something for accomplishments I had, not because I threw a bunch of money at something. Cough the Haslam building at Tennessee. What's Jimmy Haslam's name like among university people right now, Dave? It's mud. Nobody respects him. That's why I can do this show and trash him all the time. And even though he has the business building named after him. And it's because Jimmy Haslam was a horrible businessman and just a horrible runner of everything he ever touched.
Yeah, and then you've got Big Jim Haslam. What was named after him? I don't know that anything was. I don't know that he cared. Portions of the program brought to you by
Jimmy
Tennessee.
Haslam who wanted the name after him.
Yeah, it was Jimmy, not Big Jim.
He's so arrogant and pathetic at everything he does in life.
Portions of the program brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT. That's HAT to receive some free swag with your order, available most anywhere in the United States of America. Let me make it a little bit more complicated. Go to tncidercompany.com, support our sponsors, use the promo code HAT for Tennessee Cider Company, free swag with any order. Let me make it a little more complicated. You could have the Calhoun weight room, okay? Or you could have the Calhoun Calisthenics lab, which I like because it just kind of has a little bit of alliteration to it, where you are known to be associated with the football program specifically, not the econ department, but the football program. Or you can quietly subsidize Nico Iamaleava.
Quietly subsidize Nico? Nico will bring in the money for... Yes! I'm quietly subsidizing Nico. I mean,
but what if Nico Iamaleava is a bust? Then you don't have anything.
Really? I have nothing? I'm losing all my money doing this. Okay, I'll just go buy another quarterback at this point. I think, look, it speaks, unless it's for business, unless it's for your personal business reasons that you realize it's good for your branding and it really speaks to people when they try to put their name on something by just throwing money at it. That's 90% of the time them trying to cover for them being horrible. And if you have your name, like Michael Jordan didn't pay to have a statue of himself. Here's the difference. Actually, this is a big thing. Michael Jordan, LeBron, where the biggest differences are. Michael Jordan has a statue of himself outside of the Chicago Bulls Stadium because of what he did. LeBron is opening a museum about himself. Which one looks worse?
Okay, but okay. LeBron also helps a lot of kids get to school, but he does publicize it. So there's nothing.
He makes a public spectacle of it.
Yeah, he made a public spectacle of it. I guess the anonymity would be fine with me. I'll ask you, but here's the other argument. If you build the nicest calisthenics lab in the United States of America, you're more likely to have an impact and lasting effect on the program than you are just by helping the Vols get one player. You'd have to agree with that, right? I mean, Nico could be a bust. We don't think that, but Nico could be a bust, right?
Yes, he could be, but I mean, I'll just go buy another quarterback.
Oh, well, that's fair. What if all your money's tied up in Nico?
If you're tying all your money up in Nico, then you're just a terrible business person, and that's one of the dumbest things you can do is to tie up your money in NIL.
I agree. Why Banks and Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks and Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Why settle? Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, will line up for you, whether that's personal injury, criminal defense, DUI defense, even medical malpractice. Others, they'll just settle. Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. They'll go to trial for you. Banks and Jones. Go to banksjones.com. Criminal defense as well, or just simply click below. And they're one of the few that'll take medical malpractice because it's so tough to win those cases in the state of Tennessee. You're going to have the toughest, best lawyers with T. Scott Jones. I'm telling you, go to banksjones.com. All right, coming up on the program, I'm excited about this next part. SEC Power Rankings. Where will the Vols fall? Also, a Week 13 recap in which we got news from Mark Stoops to Mike Elko to Texas A&M. It's all around the place. How does that affect the Vols? Hang with me for 2 minutes. We'll continue the info. And somebody said just on the message board, I want to give them a shout out if I may. Somebody said they found the channel. And now I wanted to give them a shout out and a thank you, but now I can't find it. All right. Darla says such a great show. We appreciate that. But there was somebody that said they just found a channel. Nico is a bust. I'm not saying Nico is a bust. I never said that. All right. 2 minutes. We'll find out who just found the channel. Hit that like and subscribe button. Keep on flowing out there your predictions for where Caleb Calhoun will have the Vols in the SEC Power Rankings. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Tennessee's in the hunt for being the third best team in the season, of the season in the SEC. Caleb's going to call me crazy, but I'm going to explain why in 2 minutes off Thug Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. with a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, BanksJones.com. Why Banks Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle, and settle for less. Banks & Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. Play to win. Here we go.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, so your guy Caleb is all about just paying athletes, and he loves it, and that's what he does. It's a Cyber Monday sale at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. Go to facebook.com, follow them at Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. All right, so Caleb, the SEC power rankings are on Off the Hook Sports now, and
it will be up soon. I apologize. It will be up right after the show.
Will be up soon. SEC power rankings are how about right now? Give me give me your bottom. Oh my gosh, 14 teams in the SEC now, right? Okay, because there's getting ready to be 16. All right, so give me your bottom 6.
All right, bottom 6 is pretty easy. Anybody going to debate Vanderbilt as the worst team in the SEC?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's
Are they the worst team that Tennessee played all year?
No, they're not the worst team Tennessee played all year. I think that might be UTEP or UConn, honestly. Okay. So there is Vanderbilt. Next is, and I judge this towards the end. It's hard for me to break down the bottom, but it's how you play during rivalry week. Because during rivalry week, Dave, a lot of teams play over their heads, and who's capable of playing over their head in rivalry week? Arkansas, Missouri is kind of becoming a little bit of a rivalry west of the Mississippi. Arkansas got blown out by Missouri. They didn't even make it close. So they finished number 13. And I'm kind of shocked, aren't you, that it's Monday and Sam Pittman still hasn't been fired?
I was, because I looked up in their NIL collective is really, really good because of the Walmart money in Bentonville and nearby Fayetteville. So I thought, after I read that last week, I thought they would definitely make a change because they can throw some NIL money around more than you would think. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised. I thought he was the most likely guy to get fired.
Because isn't this yesterday is that's like the Black Sunday day of college football, right? Yesterday's the day when coaches usually get fired after a bad season.
Yes, but don't you want to see Sam Pittman survive because he's kind of old school and doing it a little bit different? I do.
I don't like old school if it is based in wrong probabilities, which Sam Pittman does all the time. I mean, not knowing on what to do on a 4th and 1 and then put. I mean, he is a nice guy, but you're letting your players down when you do that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I would like to see a guy come in with an I formation approach and have success. I think that would be kind of neat.
I think it's an underrated aspect of football. I think it should still be used. There's a reason so many 3rd and 1s aren't converted anymore, Dave, and it's because nobody uses a fullback.
Okay, so now we've got Tennessee and Georgia. I'm sorry, Georgia and Alabama. I would think would be 1-2. Fair?
Yes, but man, Alabama. I know you say it's rivalry week, but it's a bad look to struggle against Auburn when Auburn lost by 3 touchdowns at home to New Mexico State the week before. It's a really bad look.
I respectfully disagree because those kids get up for that game and they always play well at Auburn. They always play well at Auburn.
It would be one thing but it'd be one thing if you lost to New Mexico State closely. You got blown out, which I threw my conspiracy. Dave thinks I'm crazy, but y'all told me on the message board. I have half a mind of thinking Hugh Freeze got blown out by New Mexico State on purpose just so he could sabotage Alabama the next week by playing them close, because that matters to the playoff race.
Okay, well, I mean, I hate to get off topic, but Peyton Manning, what do you think about that?
That is total bullshit.
Or
I think you did it.
That's hot.
All right, so we got the middle of the pack. Have we pretty much pared down the middle of the pack?
Well, we haven't gotten. I just got to go through a few more real quick. Just real quickly, Arkansas 13, Mississippi State 12. They just hired Jeff Lebby as head coach. South Carolina at 11. I wanted to attack Shane Beamer too real quick because Shane Beamer, Dave, without last year's wins over Tennessee and Clemson, which may have been due to sign stealing, what has he done?
I don't know.
They're 5-7.
if people want to listen to the truth, we're live at 10 a.m. and then it's on YouTube. But I told you that Shane Beamer wasn't a very good coach because the coaches he surrounded himself with. I think we now know because of the Jeremy Banks situation, the sign stealing, he may have benefited last year. I also told you that Joe Milton would struggle and had a glass ceiling. But I'm not patting myself on the back. Go ahead, Caleb.
All right, so Florida.
What's our middle of the pack group?
We'll get there. I'm almost there. But Florida, number 10, they miss out on a bowl for 3 straight years for the first time since the mid-40s as a program. So middle of the pack. Auburn is number 9. Texas A&M is number 8. Here's my controversy. I dropped Tennessee to number 7 in my finish. And I moved Kentucky ahead of them. That win over Louisville with how Tennessee looked the last 2 weeks before last weekend. I'm sorry. Kentucky's playing better football right now than Tennessee.
But you are aware that Tennessee beat Louisville. I'm sorry, beat Kentucky.
Yes, I can't do everything based on this. Isn't a resume. This isn't a resume ranking.
So
this is a power ranking.
As of now ranking, and Tennessee won by what? 20 points.
Tennessee beat Vanderbilt by 20 points. They beat Kentucky by 6, and Kentucky just beat Louisville, who is the best team in the ACC right now. So
okay, so your middle of the pack teams are in what ranking? After Georgia, Alabama, what are your middle of the pack teams?
All right, Georgia, Alabama. I go Ole Miss is number 3. LSU's number 4, Missouri's number 5, Kentucky's number 6, and Tennessee's number 7.
Tennessee could or would beat those teams if they were playing them this week.
Well, they just played Missouri like 2 weeks ago, and they got absolutely wrecked. So I don't think they would beat Missouri. Now, maybe they would get them on a second time because maybe Eli Drinkwitz just threw out everything he had for Tennessee in that game.
I was totally dead, by the way.
Yeah. They absolutely would not beat Georgia. They absolutely would not beat Alabama.
Well, I'm not even counting those two. I'm counting the middle of the pack.
I don't think they beat LSU because can you imagine what Jaden Daniels would do with Tennessee's issues at linebacker?
Yeah, that would be tough. I think they would beat Kentucky. You have them over them in the power rankings. I think Missouri would be a way different game. Who else did you have in the middle of the pack team?
LSU and Ole Miss.
I have trouble believing they would beat Ole Miss, but I think they would certainly have a shot if that was at a neutral site or Neyland Stadium. And who else was the middle of the pack team?
That was it. Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, Kentucky.
Okay. So
you would just move them up one spot ahead of Kentucky.
Yes. But I think they could beat all of those teams. And I think they could beat Alabama because of the first half of the way they handled the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. Georgia, to me, is the team that's just a step better. I mean, when Georgia stumbles, they won over the weekend by what, 9? Is that right?
31-23, yeah.
Okay.
By 8. But again, that's a rivalry game against a Georgia Tech team that's actually a much better Georgia
Tech team. Now, wait a second. You can't play the rivalry game on both sides. You're telling me you're discounting the Auburn effort. And now you're saying it's a rivalry.
Wait. Okay, tell me when Georgia Tech lost to New Mexico State by 3 touchdowns.
Tell me if you disagree with me. I think that because of the way Alabama beat Auburn, which I don't think is a very good football team, and you're right, they got blown out by New Mexico State the week before. I really think they're a middle of the pack team. I think it's Georgia, and that's where the drop-off is. Last year, it was Georgia drop-off, Alabama, LSU drop-off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
I think this year it's Georgia drop-off, and then it's a bunch of teams that are in there competing. Because Alabama, you're right. They should have handled Auburn. I know that's on the Plains, and Auburn always plays Alabama in the Iron Bowl really close when it's at Auburn, specifically if you go back and look at the history of that series. But you shouldn't need what was a pinpoint throw in a gorgeous
from the 30.
Yeah, I mean it was a gorgeous play. Don't call it a Hail Mary. It wasn't a Hail Mary. Neither I didn't.
And also, the only reason the play worked out was because Auburn made the worst defensive call in the history of college football, which we'll get to on our Football IQ tomorrow. But Dave, just early on, that was a terrible defensive call, wasn't it?
Not pressuring Milroe at all.
Rushing 2 and putting a guy in spy. You really think Milroe's going to run 30 yards for a touchdown on 4th and goal?
No, I mean, at some point, a defense. I mean, he held the ball so long that I actually read of Mice and Men during that play.
Which, by the way,
it was a nice short read, and I got it in. By the way,
If you would like to purchase Celebrate 98, the Untold Stories Behind Tennessee's 1998 National Championship, that's right below, and it's Cyber Friday, so it's on Black Friday sales. You can get some stocking stuffers for your friends, and we'll take care of you there at some incredible prices. We also have the Fred White autograph books. We have soft and hard covers, so check it out. No, but that was, I mean, at some point, I thought a defensive back was just going to say, to heck with this. I'm not covering anybody. I'm going to go pressure Jalen Milroe. I mean, that's how long it took.
This is an old school way of thinking, Dave, and I don't get it. Every coach still does the rush 2, rush 3, and play zone on like 4th and long. Doesn't it make more sense to bring pressure on those plays on Hail Marys? Doesn't it make more, like, remember last year, one of the smartest calls all year, Anthony Richardson's trying for a Hail Mary to beat Tennessee, and Tim Banks blitzes, just sends the house. Because, and the reason he does that is his thought process is they're not going to call a screen. They need a Hail Mary to get into the end zone. And if you blitz, they don't have enough time to throw it into the end zone.
Well, but you're a big analytics guy. I mean, the analytics are to draw 7 at least.
No, I think the analytics are to blitz in that situation.
I don't believe that.
Likelihood, win probabilities. Now, again, maybe drops. My point is it's always pointless to rush 2 because that's 2 guys.
Well, I've never even seen somebody just rush 2. That was the first time in 25 years of covering football. I ended my 25th season yesterday or Saturday. That's the first time I've ever seen a team just rush 2 guys.
Why not just put all defensive backs and drop 11 at that point then, right? That makes more sense than rushing 2.
I don't hate that. Put 11 guys standing in the end zone. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than rushing 2. I mean, have you ever seen somebody rush 2 with a
Never.
spy?
Rush 2 with a spy. Yeah, which we're already getting into tomorrow's segment, but like, I'm sorry, I got to talk about this twice. It's like talking about Mario Cristobal's running a play when he could have taken a kneel down.
No, we'll definitely get to that. So that's part of our Week 13 SEC and college football recap, and the power rankings certainly play into that. Mark Stoops. Good day for Mark Stoops, I would imagine. Who else is it a good day for as it relates to Mark Stoops?
Well, I don't know if it was a good day for Mark Stoops. So the story of so let's want to move because this is part of the Week 13 recap I wanted to get to now with Texas A&M.
Well, he's going to get so the reports were over the weekend that he was going to go to Texas A&M. And now he's supposedly staying. So it's a good day to be Mark Stoops. He's done this about 4 times, and he'll get a big raise out of this, despite Kentucky continues to be an average program. And at some point, I think you've got to ask yourself, is Stoops even a very good coach or just an above average coach? But nevertheless, he's going to get a big raise out of this.
Is he? I think this was a fan revolt that killed the hire. I think Stoops wanted the job. I think this was a Greg Schiano situation. I think Texas A&M Twitter went off, and I think Stoops backed out because he didn't want the backlash from the fan base. And I think you and I both agree Stoops doesn't really want pressure, honestly. And I think it was too much pressure for him to go to Texas A&M with the fan revolt. So I think he backed out and decided to stay at Kentucky. But I think Texas A&M settled anyway because I'm going to just go ahead and say they made the best hire of the offseason. Y'all know how high I am on Mike Elko. That was a heck of a hire from Duke. I think Mike Elko is going to win. I'm just going to call it. I got 2 national championships for Mike Elko at Texas A&M.
Ouch. I think it's a very good hire. I think that Stoops would have been the opposite hire, a defensive coach compared to an offensive coach, a guy you don't have to pay a lot of money, a guy that brings stability to the program. It made sense. But have you ever been around a coaching hire that almost makes too much sense? Like you're trying to do the exact opposite of what you did before, and sometimes that blows up in your face. Michigan wins their 3rd straight against Ohio State, and you seem to think that Ryan Day's on the hot seat. You think Ryan Day's agent was reaching out to Texas A&M at any point over the weekend?
Maybe. I think Dabo Swinney's was. I think Dabo Swinney clearly does not feel appreciated at Clemson, and I think he was reaching out. I can't say for Ryan Day, but I think Ryan Day should be. I'm going to say it, guys. I think Ryan Day should be fired. I think Ohio State has too much talent. You can't lose to Michigan 3 years in a row. Ohio State's I don't care about history. Ohio State's a better job than Michigan. There's kind of a pretty big gulf to me between which job is easier. I don't know if you agree with me on that, Dave, but I don't even think Michigan is in the same tier as Ohio State in terms of a better job. And
I actually don't either.
Yeah, and Michigan.
I think it's the equivalent of Tennessee beating Georgia throughout the 90s.
Yeah, there was no excuse for Tennessee.
I mean, Georgia's got to go out and fire Drunken Ray Goff. Florida State, Texas complicate things for the college football playoff committee. That will be on Tuesday night. The chaos is real, and it is. If you had to pick 4 teams that'll make the college football playoff right now, and I'm going to ask you to rank them too, who would be your 4 and in what ranking? And I want to get to Tennessee's rankings as well.
Well, so right now it's pretty easy. It's Michigan number 1, Georgia number 2, Florida State Florida State number 3, Washington number 4. That's based on resume. The 4 undefeated Power 5 teams. But the chaos comes is like what happens if Washington loses to Oregon? What happens if Alabama beats Georgia right after struggling with Auburn? Then you got a lot of chaotic scenarios that could still happen. You know what the college football playoff committee wants is they want the 4 undefeateds to win. Easy, clean, call it a day. Dave, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think they would never admit it, but they would like for Florida. Does Florida State who they play in the ACC championship game?
Louisville.
They would love for Florida State to lose that because Jordan Travis is gone and hurt.
So then get Texas in the playoff. Okay, that would still be easier. Yeah. Florida State, Texas,
more star power. You know, I mean, I think that's what you want. I think they would like that. Now, the question I had for you is Tennessee didn't make the top 25. They get 98 votes, and we're not going by the college football playoff ranking. We're going by the AP, which I think is the best one. Tennessee's 23 in the coaches poll, which is largely done by sports information directors that don't understand football. So I go with the AP, and until the college football ranking comes out. But why do you think Tennessee dropped out of the top 25 altogether?
I don't know, and
I'm sorry, behind teams like Toledo, Oregon State,
also even
James
worse,
Madison, SMU.
Oregon State to me is the worst one actually at 8-4. If you're going to sit there and say like 10-2 group of 5 teams should be in over 8-4 Power 5 teams, fine. But why is Oregon State just have some consistency because they're also 8-4. And okay, let's take a look at Tennessee's 3 losses right now. No, they have 4 losses. 3 of them are to top 10 teams. Georgia number 1, Alabama number 8, Missouri number 9. So how could you honestly say that Oregon State's 8-4 is better than Tennessee's 8-4 when Oregon State they both have a bad loss. Oregon State's is to Washington State, Tennessee's is to Florida. Both of those teams finished 5-7, and then Oregon State lost to Arizona, Washington, and Oregon. Okay, but I think Tennessee's 3 losses outside of the 1 bad loss are better. So I don't see how you put Oregon State all the way up at number 21 and have Tennessee outside of the top 25. It just doesn't make sense to me. They're at least on par with each other.
Let me ask you this. You wrote they stumbled, that Texas A&M did, into the hiring of Mike Elko. Did they really? Did they? That's not stumbling if a fan revolt or Stoops tells you no and you end up with your second best guy. Your stumbling is what Tennessee mastered in the 2010s. If your second guy you go after and get is Mike Elko, who you and I both really like, that's actually a well-run coaching search, and it just took like 5 days.
I think they stumbled because I think a fan revolt killed a hire.
But see, I don't think Stoops would have been a bad hire in and of itself. I would have if we woke up and Stoops was the head coach for the Aggies right now, I would have said good hire. Elko, I would say potentially great hire. You swung for the fences. I think with Stoops, you got a guy who hits a lot of doubles. With Elko, you've got a guy who could be the Albert Pujols of this coaching generation.
Okay, so we just have a different definition on. Wow, yeah, I agree with that. We just have a different definition of stumbling into hires, I guess.
I don't know that Tennessee, in some situations, had a solid number 2. And I'm trying to think back. Lane, Dooley, Butch. I didn't cover Jeremy Pruitt, the coaching search, nearly as closely, but who was the solid number 2 in any of those coaching searches? It had to be Lane because they were not going. That's why they fired Philip Fulmer in the middle of the season, is to get Lane.
Wasn't Butch Davis competitive in that search?
The Lane one?
Yeah.
No, they fired Philip Fulmer to get Lane because he was going to go to Washington. That's who they wanted. That may be the only coaching search that that has happened in the past 15 years where they just went out and got who they wanted. Now you could argue they shouldn't have wanted him, but Dooley, who's your fall off after that? Butch Jones, who's your fall off after that? Jeremy Pruitt. I think that's the guy that delivers my mail. Is the fall
Butch
off
Jones Butch Jones was actually the smoothest coaching search. It just was not a good hire because if you remember correctly, Tennessee, they reached out to John Gruden first. John Gruden didn't want the job. They went to Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong didn't want the job. They settled on Butch Jones afterward, and so, but the others were stumbles as far as A&M. I guess. What about this Clemson? They stumbled into Dabo Swinney, didn't they? That was just an assistant that they hired after a coaching search in the offseason. And I remember there were it was. And there were rumors that Fulmer might even take the Clemson job after he was fired by Tennessee, because that was the same year that happened. I don't know how real it was. Fulmer may have floated that himself.
You think a call was made to Jimmy Sexton? Hey, that'd be good. I'd take that Clemson job. Well, hell yeah, you would. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Take that job.
Wanted to go a couple.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to hit up a couple points real quick with this, Dave. These rankings overall show how insane college football is going to be overall next year. Of the top 13 in both polls, only Florida State is not going to be in the SEC or the Big Ten next year. We're watching two big championships games on Saturday, Washington, Oregon, and Michigan and Iowa. And they're all in the Big Ten next year. Texas is in the Big 12 title. They'll be in the SEC. And then, so we have 12 of the 13 in two conferences, but there's going to be 6 automatic bids for the college football playoff. So you're really going to have to convince me, Dave, that there should be 6 automatic bids when 12 of the 13 best teams are in two conferences. Does that make any sense?
Not really. I'll say the other thing that doesn't make sense is Bo Nix is probably going to be on my Heisman ballot. That doesn't sound right. Sounds like something that you would have said 4 years ago and laughed at, like a Bill Burr special or something. You know, hey, that Bo Nix is going to be on Dave Hooker's Heisman ballot. But it looks like he very well might be. You've got now help me with this, because I know the way you do power rankings, but your Heisman race, these are just actually the guys that are going to win the Heisman. It's not recency biased, right?
Yeah, it's not recency bias. It's specifically who should be leading at the moment.
So you have Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., who always plays hard, Jalen Milroe at Alabama, Jordan Travis as well, who's probably not going to be a factor because of the injury. Whether or not he should, we could debate that. I can't think of another guy right now, but I'll do a lot of studying on Sunday. I can't think of another guy right now I would enter into that grouping of Nix, Daniels, Penix, and Milroe.
It's really just the top 4. Because, yeah, Jordan Travis won't go, but I think he should. I just don't think it's fair. I thought the same with Hendon Hooker last year.
And I test, which I don't base my Heisman voting on. I get up Sunday morning and I really put a lot of time into it. It's Jaden Daniels followed by Penix.
See, I would go Jaden Daniels followed by Bo Nix with eye test.
That's fair. I need to look at the numbers and I need to look at the big game performances. I'm not going to pretend to know everything about Oregon and Washington. So,
well, the whole Pac-12 title game, the Pac-12 title game is going to determine the Heisman winner. If Bo Nix wins and plays well, if Oregon wins and Bo Nix plays well, he wins it. Washington wins, Michael Penix plays well, he wins it. If Washington wins but Michael Penix plays poorly, which is really possible, I think Jaden Daniels wins it. But if Oregon wins, I think Bo Nix wins it, period, if Oregon wins.
All right, so let's get to your top 10, which we kind of discussed a little bit. It's brought to you in part by Don Self. Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. For well over 40 years, they built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers in Collegedale and Ottawa, as well as the greater Chattanooga area. Don and his team pride themselves on making sure you and your family won't have any surprises at the time of the claim. Customer service still matters. I know we're all looking for the best rate, but customer service still matters. So give me your top 10 and be thankful that you put the top 10 on Off the Hook Sports and you're not an actual AP voter, because I've been told that's pure hell.
Oh, I could see that. All right, so I chose the path of least resistance.
It's not figuring out who's 1, 2, and 3. It's figuring out who's 21, 22, and 23.
No, that's fair. But 1, 2, and 3 is all that matters. But anyways, I chose the path of least resistance. So Michigan's clearly number 1 to me, and Georgia's clearly number 2. You could interchange those. I think it's debatable. And then Florida State is 3, and Washington is 4, and Ohio State is 5. But Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I would listen to an argument for Ohio State at 3 ahead of Florida State and Washington, because their only loss is on the road to Michigan, who I have at number 1, and they have the number 1 ranked strength of schedule. So
I totally agree. No, don't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So in your top 10, how many teams do you think could legitimately win the national title? Let's assume they take care of business this week. For those that have conference championship games, I'm going to go down the list, and you tell me if you think that they could win a college football national championship, and we'll get a little help from our friends Hank Kingsley.
Hey now.
And
That's crazy.
Tracy Morgan, as well as
You suck, you jackass.
because we can't get enough of them. And then there's always Peyton.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Paris?
That's hot.
All right. Michigan, number 1, they can win a title, right? No, there's no doubt about it.
I'll say yes, but I'm not thoroughly convinced they can.
Well, can and will is 2 different things.
Yeah, but I think they could. I think they could.
Okay, can.
Hey now.
Georgia.
Could Georgia win a national title? I don't know.
Florida State.
No, they can't win it.
Nah, not with the Travis injury.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Sorry.
I mean, and it's not like Cardell Jones with Ohio State because people are going to bring that up in 2014. But Cardell, like what we all knew in that time was Urban Meyer had a system that Urban Meyer always had 3 quarterbacks at any point who could play in his system, right?
Okay, let me give you some news. Washington cannot win a national title.
That's hot.
And let me tell you why. They don't have the guys up front the same way that Notre Dame didn't when Brian Kelly was there, the same way that Oregon hasn't at times when you thought they were the most exciting team in college football. Washington can't win a title, especially if Penix comes up soft.
I actually agree with you.
Ohio State. Ohio State. I just got to move on from that or I'll get distracted. Ohio State 5. They could win a title, right?
Yeah, they could win one.
All right.
Hey now.
And
Oregon.
Oh, so we said Oregon. Could they win a national title?
Yeah, they've actually recruited War Daddies out there. That's why they're good this year. Dan Lanning has gone all in on War Daddies up front.
Hey now.
I'll agree with that. I like them more than I like Washington, actually. Texas, can they win a national title?
No, Texas can't win it. They wouldn't even belong if they got in, but they would get in because of that win over Alabama, and that's all they'd have.
That's hot.
Agreed. And then Alabama, could they win a national title? Yes, because of Nick Saban, period, in the discussion.
Yes, and those are the only 8 that could, and yes, they could win a national title. But the question is, can they beat Georgia this week to win a national title?
Right. So I think there are actually I'm taking Oregon off the list, and I'm taking
No, you took Washington and Florida State.
Washington and Florida State. I'll leave Oregon on there, but I think there's 6 teams that can win a national championship. I'll leave Oregon on, but I'm 50-50 on that.
Yeah, I think 6. And there's 8 teams that have a realistic shot to get in this weekend, and only 4 control their own destiny. Like, here's the crazy part. The 4 undefeateds are the only ones who control their own destiny. If any of the ones lose, it becomes very tricky on which one-loss team you put in. Because honestly, Dave, I'll say this. Chaos, ready? What if Alabama beats Georgia? Are we sure we should put Alabama in over Ohio State? I know the Georgia win stands out, but like...
The guy who's not afraid to debate is our friend T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones. Go to Banks and Jones or banksjones.com and find Tennessee's trial attorney that will go to battle for you and not just settle out of court. They bring you the Dave Hooker Show, banksjones.com. When it comes to criminal defense, I'm not suggesting you go out and commit a crime so that you could work with Banks and Jones, but just remember the name and tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you if something comes up. Also, personal injury issues, they'll take care of you. And they even do medical malpractice, which about 5 years ago, I had an issue. And medical malpractice is pretty much impossible to win unless you're thinking about Banks Jones. Tennessee's trial attorney bringing you the Dave Hooker Show. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.